Hello everyone. So it is 9:12 here in the evening. So this video might not be that long, but I just thought that I would read the introduction to the Tao Te Ching in the Four Chinese Classics, translated by David Hinton, because it might have some interesting things. I think that tomorrow for me, not tomorrow for you, when this is posted, I'm gonna try to do like a live stream and maybe do a close reading of the Tao Te Ching, at least the first 28 chapters, because that's what I'm assigning to my students. And hopefully I have some people join in and we can figure it out together. That would be super helpful. It is a Saturday night for me. But I did finish reading for the first time rereading everything I assigned to my students in world religion and everything in Intro to Philosophy. So I feel a bit like, now what do I do? So, because I still wanted to prepare. I did get Rhonda Byrne's The Magic. I think she has like 4 books. 3 others. Well, I think she has probably many more. But like in the Secret series, I think there's 4 books. So I'm getting the other 3 tomorrow. And I did buy another book on Taoism, and Amazon said that it was delivered to me and handed to the resident, and it definitely wasn't, so I don't know where my book is. But all right, let's just get started. In the realm of ancient Chinese myth, Earth's generative natural process takes the awesome form of dragon. Both feared and revered as the mysterious force of life itself, dragon animates all things in the unending cycle of life and death and rebirth. As it embodies the process of change itself, dragon appears only to disappear again, and so it is in constant transformation. Its scales glisten in the bark of rain-swept pines, and it roams seething waters. It descends into deep pools and lakes in autumn, where it hibernates until spring, when its awakening is the awakening of spring and the return of life to earth. It rises from the depths and ascends into the sky, its voice filling the spring winds that scatter autumn leaves. It takes the shape of storm clouds, its claws becoming lightning, and produces the life-bringing spring rains. Throughout the millennial turning of this seasonal process, spirituality in ancient China was primarily a matter of dwelling at the deepest levels of our belonging to the dragon's realm. And this spiritual ecology traces its source back to the origins of Taoist thought, to the sage antics of Shuangxiu, I think that's how you say his name, Tzu, and beyond, to the dark ambiguities and evocative silences of Lao Tzu's mysterious poetry. Indeed, after his legendary encounter with Lao Tzu, an awestruck Confucius exclaimed, "A dragon mounting wind and cloud to soar through the heavens. Such things are beyond me." And today, meaning Lao Tzu, it was like facing a dragon. The question of the historical Lao Tzu is itself a case study in dragon's protean nature. Centuries before the first scraps of Lao Tzu's legend coalesced, he had already vanished into the scattered fragments that eventually evolved into the little book that now bears his name. In the cultural legend, Lao Tzu was an elder contemporary of Confucius, born in 551 BCE, but in spite of his stature as a sage, nothing verifiable is known about him. And even the cultural legend is made up of very few facts. He was born in the state of Chu and became a court archivist at the Chao capital. He was consulted by Confucius, who emerged from the meeting awestruck. He left the world heartsick of the ways of people, and as he was going through a mountain pass to vanish into the far west, the gatekeeper there convinced him to leave behind his 5,000 word scroll of wisdom. Sorry. The actual biography of the Tao Te Ching's author, whose name simply means Old Master, no doubt looks quite different. He was probably constructed out of fragments gleaned from various old sage masters active between perhaps the 6th and 4th centuries BCE at the historical beginnings of Chinese philosophy. These early texts were worn away, broken up, scattered, assembled and reassembled, a geologic process lasting several hundred years that apparently included a number of sage editors who wove this material into the single enduring voice that we find in the Tao Te Ching. The result of this rather impersonal process was a remarkably personal presence. If we look past the fragmentary text and oracular tone, we find a voice that is consistent and compassionate, unique and rich with the complexities of personality. It seems likely that a good deal of the material woven into Lao Tzu's voice actually predates the historical beginnings of Chinese philosophy, deriving from an ancient oral tradition. The sayings themselves may predate Lao Tzu by 3 centuries, but the origins of this oral tradition must go back to the culture's most primal roots, to a level early enough that a distinctively Chinese culture had yet to emerge. For the philosophy of Tao embodies a cosmology rooted in that most primal and wondrous presence, Earth's mysterious generative force. This force must have been truly wondrous to those primal people, not only because of the unending miracle of new life seemingly appearing from nothing, but also because that miracle was so vital to their well-being, providing them with food, water, clothing, shelter, and of course, a future in their children. In the Paleolithic, the human experience of the mystery of this generative force gave rise to such forms of human art as vulvas etched into stone, and female figures emphasizing the sense of fecundity. This art was no doubt associated with the development of humankind's earliest spiritual practices, the various forms of obeisance to a great mother who continuously gives birth to all creation, and who, like the natural process when she represents, also takes life and regenerates it in an unending cycle of life, death, and rebirth. These phenomena appear to be ubiquitous among later Paleolithic and early Neolithic cultures, where they are integral to gynocentric and egalitarian social structures. In the Tao Te Ching, this venerable generative force appears most explicitly in Lao Tzu's recurring references to the female principle, such as mother of all beneath heaven, nurturing mother, valley spirit, dark female enigma. But its dark mystery is everywhere in the Tao Te Ching, for it is nothing other than the Tao itself, the central concept in Lao Tzu's thought. It is a joy to imagine that the earliest of the sages woven into Lao Tzu, those responsible for the core regions of his thought, were in fact women from the culture's Proto-Chinese Paleolithic roots. That is interesting. The primal generative process is revered by those earliest of Chinese sages, takes on new dimensions in Lao Tzu's Tao, dimensions that carry it into the realms we now speak of as ontology and ecology, cosmology, phenomenology, and social philosophy. Tao originally meant way, as in pathway or roadway, and Lao Tzu recast it as a spiritual way by using it to describe that inexplicable generative force seen as an ongoing process, hence a way. This way might be provisionally described as a kind of generative ontological process through which all things arise and pass away, and Lao Tzu's way is to dwell as a part of that natural process. In that dwelling, self is but a fleeting form taken on by Earth's process of change. Or more absolutely, it is all and none of Earth's fleeting forms simultaneously, that is, pure dragon. The story of this dragon has endured for 2,500 years now in the voice of Lao Tzu, and as such it has been the defining spiritual way in China. Once your eyes become adjusted to the strange light in the world of this old master's teachings, you learn to see yourself inside Chen Yung's Grand Dragon painting. There, a young dragon just appearing from shadowy mist and cloud is being taught by a sage old dragon. Its mane thin and white, its teeth half gone, its body fading back into mist and cloud. Lao Tzu's thought is driven by a sense of exile that derives from a fundamental rupture between human being and natural process. During the Paleolithic, humans began to be aware of themselves as separate from the natural process, and the distance that this separation opened allowed the generative centered worldview to arise. This intermediate stage, where humans were still rooted in natural process and yet separate enough to produce a rich artistic and spiritual tradition, continued into the agrarian cultures of the early Neolithic. But for a number of reasons, the separation eventually became a rupture as Neolithic humans in agrarian villages began controlling nature in the form of domesticated plants and animals. This process coincides with a shift from the gynocentric worldview to an androcentric worldview. Although he lacked a precise anthropological understanding of human evolution, Lao Tzu often alludes to this historical process, always with disdain. And indeed, at one point he reduces this monumental transformation to a single poetic image. When all beneath heaven forgets way, war horses are bred among the fertility altars. Oh, that's interesting. In China, this rupture had become a complete separation by the historical beings of Chinese civilization in the Shang dynasty, 1766 to 1040 BCE, which marked the transition from Neolithic to Bronze Age culture and was already fiercely patriarchal. The Shang was preceded by the Neolithic Xia dynasty, maybe, about which very little is known. But it appears that in the Paleolithic cultures that preceded the Xia, another spiritual practice developed alongside the reverent celebration of the Great Mother, another reflection of how deeply humans felt their belonging to Earth as a whole. Nature deities were worshipped as tribal ancestors. Hence, a tribe may have traced its lineage back to an originary high ancestor river. For instance, this practice apparently survived through the Xia into the Shang, where evidence of it appears in oracle bone inscriptions. These nature deities continue to be worshipped in their own right. But within the ideology of power, religious life focused on worship of human ancestors, all male. By forging this new religious system into a powerful form of theocratic government, the Shang was able to dominate Chinese civilization for no less than 700 years. The Shang emperors ruled by virtue of their lineage, which was sanctified by Shang Ti, celestial lord, a supreme deity who functioned as the source of creation, order, ethics, etc. The Shang house may even have traced its lineage directly back to Shang Ti as its originary ancestor. Shang here represents two entirely different words in Chinese. In any case, Shang Ti provided the Shang rulers with a transcendental source of legitimacy and power. He protected and advanced their interests, and through their spirit ancestors, they could decisively influence Shang Ti's shaping of events. All aspects of people's lives were thus controlled by the emperor, whether harvest, politics, economy, economics, religion. Indeed, people didn't experience themselves as substantially different from spirits, for the human realm was simply an extension of the spirit realm. I feel like that's really important. And about the feminine, back several paragraphs, I do notice in the Tao Te Ching the emphasis and also the 9 practices of the celestial masters, an emphasis on yin and the feminine, the dark enigma. There's always this sort of yielding and receptive nature. And even though the goal of Taoism is to balance the masculine and the feminine energies in the individual and in the world, there seems to be sort of this emphasis, which I thought maybe Lao Tzu or the group of, authors and editors, they were kind of harking back to the past because they saw in their world too much yang energy. So it was kind of like they saw the pendulum kind of go all the way to maybe even the shadow sides of yang, and wanted to bring it back to the light aspects of yin in order to hopefully meet somewhere in the middle at some point. But that's interesting, this theory that, well, maybe the ideas of the Tao Te Ching are even like precede even Chinese culture, and can be traced back to maybe like a gynocentric, I think it said, culture, which I don't know. I mean, do scholars feel, I know that, archaeology, finds like these ancient female figures that represent fertility and abundance in the earth. But I don't know. I don't know if scholarship sort of agrees that there was ever gynocentric cultures. Let me know in the comments below. I know that I've definitely, I've read a lot on even like the matriarchal hypothesis, and I think her name's Maria Gimbutas's like Goddesses and Gods of Old Europe. I have that book, but I just didn't know if that was like debunked or not. This represents a complete reversal from the Proto-Chinese worldview. I think this is a really good sentence. I read this earlier. Feminine to masculine, nurturing to dominating, body to spirit, earthly to heavenly. The Paleolithic unity of human and natural process has become a complete rupture in this world view, which is very like that of the Judeo-Christian West in its fundamental outlines, a monotheism in which spiritual connections locate the human in a transcendental spirit realm rather than the tangible earthly realm. What was I reading or watching before? At some point today, someone was, I can't remember what it was. Someone was talking about, that's right. It was Ellie Anderson. I was watching Overthink podcast, and it was a video on, because we're discussing mainly Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre, but I had them watch videos on Simone de Beauvoir, and I'm going to bring up Kierkegaard. It's an intro class, so I'm just trying to get them through as many philosophers as I can, but I'm like spending a whole week on maybe like one. I try to spend an entire week on just one philosopher, but I can't do that with all of them. Like I did 1 week on Plato, 1 week on Aristotle, 1 week on Kant, 1 week on Nietzsche. Then sometimes I add in videos so they can at least get a taste of some of the other philosophers, because there's just so much to cover, and I really wanted to get to contemporary philosophers. So anyway, I can't remember why Ellie Anderson made this comment, but I think she was trying to talk about like patriarchy and explain the subordination of women as per Simone de Beauvoir's perspective. And she mentioned in Genesis that, Eve was taken from the rib of Adam, but the Hebrew word that's usually translated to rib is more like a cave, or sort of like, it could even be like a womb. And so there is an idea that Adam wasn't necessarily a man or male, and woman was created second to be sort of like subordinate, but that Adam was like biologically non-binary. And there's like other words for that. But that's what I came up with earlier, and I kind of liked it. So I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't think it's a thing, but I want to coin it. Maybe that's stupid. So yeah, so I don't know. That kind of changes things a little bit. Women didn't come after man, but like Adam was everything. They were both male and female. That's why Adam was able to birth Eve. So just a thought. Such was the imperial ideology, convenient to the uses of power because it accorded little ethical value to the masses, not of select lineages. Not surprisingly, the rise of Shang-Ti seems to coincide with the rise of the Shang dynasty, and later myth speaks of him as the creator of Shang civilization. In the cruelest of ironies, it was overwhelming human suffering that brought the Chinese people back into their earthly lives, beginning the transformation of the spiritualistic culture back to a humanistic one. In the cultural legend, the early Shang rulers were paradigms of nobility and benevolence, but by the end of the Shang, the rulers had become cruel and tyrannical, and as there was no ethical system separate from the religious system, there was nothing to shield the people from their depredations. Let's see how long this is. This is quite long. We are definitely not getting through it because it ends on page 30, and I'm on page 18. But we'll finish this paragraph. Meanwhile, a small nation was being pushed to the borders of the Shang realm by Western tribes. This state of semi-barbarian people, known as the Chou, maybe, Chou. I really need to go on Duolingo and learn a little bit of Chinese, at least to get the sounds, the letters. Gradually adopted the cultural traits of the Shang. Eventually, under the leadership of the legendary sage emperors Wen, meaning cultured, and Wu, meaning martial, the Chou overthrew, I don't know if that's, it's in parentheses, overthrew the tyrannical Shang ruler, thus founding the Chou dynasty, 1040 to 223. That's quite long, which was welcomed wholeheartedly by the Shang people. So this is a really interesting historical review, and I think the theories, I really like theories that kind of add something to think about. But there's about 12 more pages of this. I think this is really interesting. I've read the entire Four Chinese classics, so I can't remember when I started this. I finished it this summer, so I've already read this, but I'm just kind of reading through it again because how will I remember, unless I read it just before class. So hopefully you enjoyed that reading with me. Thank you so much for reading with me. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I apologize for my pronunciation on all of the Chinese names because I'm sure I got them horribly wrong. As someone teaching a survey of religions, I feel like I should really know how to pronounce everything in all of the religions, but I don't, so maybe someday. That's my goal, right? Okay, well, thank you all, and I will see you in the next video.